Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena and 2,451 miles from Comerica Park. Now, if you're wondering why I'm bringing the Tigers home into this, don't worry. We're not going to talk too much about it, but I am going to bring a little bit of Tigers talk in today's show. Please do not sign off. We have plenty of Red Wings stuff to discuss, but I've heard from a couple people that they wouldn't mind a little Tigers talk, and it's early in the season and we have some questions maybe, so just allow for it and tune in. Obviously, all you hockey fans, I'm going to basically satisfy your palate and give you the Red Wings talk, but we're just going to mix it up a little bit and have a little fun in our last segment to hybridize the two sports on a sports book perspective. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the Red Wings Flyers. That's the game tonight at LCA. The L, I'm starting to think, stands for lose. Seems like lose. A loss can be assessed. I think that's what LCA should start to stand for. We're 2-7-3 in our last 12 at LCA. The first time we played the Flyers, this is the rubber match. So the first time we played the Flyers, we lost. This was that game where basically we had a 0-4 deficit, scored 3 goals in 2.5 minutes to make it to 4-3. We kept the goaltender pulled. This is where my Monday morning quarterback's face said we should have I think it was Taubes at that point. I think they bounced Gibby. So I think Taubes was basically our goalie of record. I felt like we should have put him back on in the crease and then pressured them and then kept it in their zone, deep in the blue line, deep in their zone, past their blue line, and basically get the minute and a half up for them on their shift, maybe make them continue to make mistakes like icing the puck and they have to stay out there. They can't change lines on that situation. And then once we get them to about the minute and a half that they're out there on the ice and they can't change, then you shift out the goaltender. You shift out Taubes and have a 6-on-4. Now they got, 6-on-5, sorry. But 5 very tired sets of legs. That's what we should have done. We didn't. We ended up giving ourselves a little open to them getting a empty netter, basically from like 105 feet. Ended all the momentum we had. We lost 5-3. We won 4-2. Looking at the two games real quick, basically the power play on the win, we were 1-for-2, and then we were 1-for-1 on the penalty kill. In our loss, we were 0-for-2 on the penalty kill and 0-for-2 on the power play. So obviously that makes the big difference. This is the rubber match. So this is basically, to see who wins the season series. We don't have too many rubber matches. It mostly has to do with the Metropolitan Conference because that's the only conference we play 3 games. But so far, Montreal, we do have one. We do have 2 teams in the Atlantic that we play only 3 games. That's Montreal and Buffalo. We didn't really have a chance for a rubber match against Buffalo because they won the first 2 games of the series. But Montreal, we did, and in our rubber match against Montreal, we won. Other rubber matches we've had: Carolina, we've lost; Blue Jackets, we've lost; and the Rangers, we've lost. We only have 2 left. That's against the Flyers and against the Devils. So let's see if we can get 2 more wins. We're 8-10-4 against the Metro. So that's one thing we're also hoping is basically to win these next 2 games at home and to have, I guess, it's not necessarily a 500 record because the 4 overtime losses still dips it back below, but it definitely improves our record against the conference that we've done the worst against this season. But looking at the personnel, it looks like it's going to be Vladar versus Gibby. Gibby's 2-5-1 his last 8. He's lost 4 out of his last 5. Injuries: Grabenkin and Abels for Philadelphia, and for Detroit, Appy and Big Grass. So once again, not too bad for us injury-wise, and the 2 that are injured really, to me, aren't as effective as somebody else we could be having on the bench or basically on the IR. So there we go. They do have one player, though, that's making some headlines back in Philadelphia, and that's Martone. Teenager, got a game-winning goal in overtime in the last week. So they're talking about him a little bit, especially with Philadelphia making this kind of late surge. They were well in our rearview mirror. They're not our problem anymore because they basically handled the 3 seed over there in the Metropolitan Conference or Metropolitan Division. Our problem right now is Ottawa, Columbus, and Islanders, and now Washington. Honestly, with their win yesterday, Washington's tied us in points as well. So yet another team who has caught up with us over here in the Eastern Conference. So way to go with this abysmal last 10 weeks of the season. We've had yet another team basically catch up to us. So, so we'll just keep an eye out for Martone. We'll have like a talk about it, and we'll have a recap of tonight's game and tomorrow's show before we go into the weekend. Well, folks, it's Thursday, so that means it's Throwback Thursday. The throwback is going to go back to April 9th of 2016. It was a game we lost. It was game 82 on the season. Now, why do I bring this one up? This was basically, even though we lost the game, we clinched our playoff berth for the 25th straight season on this day. It was a game against the New York Rangers. This game we lost 3-2. But this is the last time the Red Wings have seen playoff action in a season. This was the second to last season at Joe Louis Arena. We couldn't even bid farewell to Joe Louis Arena in 2016, 2017 by playing past game 82. We had to play past game 82 in the, pre-swan song for the arena. So we lose in game 81. We lost to Boston in regulation, and which was stopping a 4-game winning streak. So we were kind of getting hot to basically make our way into the discussion of playoffs. We lose to Boston in game 81. Boston loses on game 82, just like we do. So we had the tiebreaker, and I think it was because we had the more regulation wins. I think we both ended with 93 points in 2015, 2016. So we get the playoff spot, they don't. Basically, personnel. Well, let's talk about who, we did score 2 goals against the Rangers. They did beat us. The 2 goals were scored by Riley Sheehan and Justin Abdelkader. Assists by Datsuk, Green, Richards, and Zetterberg over those 2 goals. So the other personnel, and there's only one of them who is on the team still, and that's Larkin. But the other personnel are Anderson, Athanasiou, DeKaiser, Eriksson, Glendening, Helm, Kronwall, Marchenko, Nyquist, Quincy, Tatar, and Jimmy Howard. So basically that set up our 4-1 series loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We had lost plenty enough games to them. I think they've become our playoff nemesis now that we're in the Eastern Conference. Very small pool to come from because we've been in the Eastern Conference about 13 seasons more or less, and we've missed the playoffs 9, coming up on 10. So and I believe that at least two series were played against the Lightning. I know we played against the Bruins and basically won one game of that and lost 4-1. There was a series against Tampa Bay, though, where we had them possibly in the position to be down 3-1. They scored late and then beat us in overtime and completely shifted the series, and it went the rest of the way. So our last season that we had a playoff appearance was 2015-2016, and we lost 4-1 to Tampa Bay. So, I mean, obviously they were paltry showings in the not anything past round 1, but it was still a playoff appearance, and that's what we're seriously trying to grasp and clutch and keep in our clutches and turn around. But once again, folks, not looking very good for us right now. As hot as the Senators are and as cold as we are, basically asking them to lose more than 2 games, or at least 2 games out of 4, and for us to win all 4, it's the tallest order that we've had all year, and I don't think it's going to be filled. So let us shift sports just for a brief moment. Talk about the Tigers. They lost. It actually wasn't too much of a drubbing after all. They were losing pretty bad, but they came back. They didn't come all the way back, but they made it interesting. They lost 8-6. I think they were down 7-0 at one point, maybe even 8-0, but or 7. No, it wasn't 8-0. It was like 7-2, and then it was 8-2, and then it was 8-6. So, looking at the Tigers, couple of key factors for why they're 4-8. Skubal won his first start of the season, pretty dominant against the Diamondbacks. But the Diamondbacks was the game he actually lost. So he started off the season with the win, it looks like, but then he's had a hard luck loss going down to Arizona and taking on the Diamondbacks. That was a 1-0 loss for the team. So obviously he got hardly any run support. Then he lost 4-2 to Minnesota. to start this series, basically, against the Twins. And so, a couple, it's not like he's doing horribly, but he's not being Scooble. So just keep an eye out on Scooble. Cy Young winner. Obviously, if I do my fantasy draft and I have the number 3 pick, I might take him just because he wins so many categories. But standouts. Oh, another thing. We actually, the Tigers picked up Framber Valdez in the offseason. That is a key pickup, I think. Well, if you had him before that, I don't know. But Framber Valdez, adding him to the rotation, basically, Scooble, Montero, Mize, and Flaherty. The hopes are high with that one. Framber Valdez, I believe he's the one for Philadelphia. I had him on my fantasy team a few years ago. He was solid. And I believe he was the one who pitched the no-hitter in the World Series against Philadelphia in 2022. So he is somebody who is capable of doing plenty. He lost basically last night. I believe that was his loss to take. So he's 1-1 on the season. So just some of the other players to look out for on the Tigers if we're just, entertaining this. Dingle. Did I spell his name wrong? Basically, he's the catcher. And McGonigal, I should say, sorry. They both have 7 RBI basically, or up through before last night's game. Carpenter and Dingle with 2 dingers each. That's right. 2 dingers for Dingle. So they basically lead the team with home runs. Standouts, another couple standouts. Colt Keith. I know that you guys have a lot of eyes on Colt Keith as a second baseman. He's got a 353 average, or he did at least going into last night's game. And a couple other players to kind of look out for. Obviously, our Javier Baez. I feel like he's been decent, at least as far as what's to be expected of him. He was starting to be very abysmal with Chicago. Obviously, he won the World Series with them in 2016. He was one of the key factors of that team for the Cubs. He's basically on his 5th season, I think, with Detroit. He's had his ups and downs. He's had a decent season last season, at least decent for him. So I guess the question is how much, hopes or how much, expectations do we have? Maybe he can live up to them. And we'll just see. Gleyber Torres, another one, Torkelson, and McKinstry. McKinstry, I think, showed a little bit of spark late in the season last year, but then really started to really freeze off. And I think he actually got injured to end the season. But he's a third baseman that there's a lot of eyes on too. So there's a lot of youth going around the horn, as they call it in baseball. And so, obviously the last 2 seasons, the Tigers have won at least one series each season, and just came short of the ALCS in both these last 2 seasons. So the hopes are high considering moving forward. They want things to stay the status quo as far as Scooble goes, and they want to give them a little bit of help in the bullpen and in the rotation. So 4-8 start, not too bad, or not too good, I guess, but don't think too badly on it because it is early in the season. It is the time where the wear and tear of spring training it's not the wear and tear so much. The wear and tear starts to show up around September, August, and in those days, the dog days of baseball. But the getting into it and getting yourself situated, playing against real competition, not doing the split squad things in the spring training, back in, Lakeland? Is that where Detroit has their spring training? I'm not sure. But sometimes a team that has a lot of expectations gets off to a slow start. Don't worry. Don't call it, like we're calling it for the Red Wings. Don't call it for the Tigers yet. There's 162 games in a season. They've only played 12. They got a whole 150 to go. You got a Cy Young winning pitcher in Scooble, so you always have that, and that's always something that can be one of those things to hold near and dear and basically give the optimism moving forward. So every once in a while, I might just check in to see how the Tigers are doing, see how things are improving, see if players are still hitting hot. Colt Keith is obviously doing well, hitting, batting, doing it great for him. And McGonigal and Dingle getting the RBI that they're getting. Maybe there can be a few more contributors in there. I think that the expectations are high for outfielders like Riley Green and Carpenter, and they just hope for Baez to do something. I think Baez is probably in there a lot also for defense. I think Baez, despite his flaws at the plate lately in the last however long of his career, I think he's also an asset, though, for defense. So let's mix the two sports to end this show. This is interesting because we're going to have an over and under. Okay, we're going to say who's going to have more, basically. Basically over and under of who is going to be the one on top on this. So who will have more this season? Will Riley Green have more home runs, or will Dylan Larkin have more goals? That's the question. Last year Green had 36 home runs and Larkin has 31 goals. So if Green obviously stays on pace for what he did last season, and if Larkin doesn't score anymore really to end this season, then it will go Green's way. But I do feel, my prediction, I'm going to go with Larkin. I feel like he ends this season with 33 goals, and Green comes up short with 32 home runs. So he doesn't have as good of a season home run-wise as he did last year. 36 home runs is very impressive, honestly. When you're talking about players not named Aaron Judge, not named Shohei Ohtani, 36 home run season is definitely nothing to sneeze at. But I still feel like Larkin will have more goals. And this obviously is a discussion for, September 30th or whatever the season ends to see who did more. But it is kind of fun to think about that, transporting, basically hybridizing these two sports. So who will have more shutouts this season, Skubal or Gibby? Now, Skubal only had one complete game shutout last season, it looks like. Gibby has 5 shutouts this season. As poorly as he's done lately, with his 2-5-1, he does have 5 shutouts this season, which for a player of his age is actually pretty impressive. So considering the fact that Skubal, probably in this day and age, folks, there's a lot of 6-7 inning pitchers. I feel like Skubal is a 7 or 8 inning pitcher, but not always going to be the 9 inning pitcher unless he is just really cooking. In the 1-0 loss to Arizona, he went 7 innings. So considering that, I'm going to have to give the complete games or the shutouts, I guess, because it has to be a complete game to call it a shutout. A pitcher calling a shutout. A combined effort is not the same thing. So I feel like Skubal will probably come up short to Gibby's 5. Over and under. Hits for Sider or hits for Colt Keith. Right now, Sider is at 123 hits for the season. Obviously, I believe he's going to have another handful there. So let's say he ends the season over these next 4 games. Let's say he gets about 3 or 4 hits each game. That basically puts him at about 136 hits. Well, 136 hits is more or less like a 230 ish batting average, probably 230, 240, might even be 250, but that's probably it. So do you think Colt Keith is going to bat better than 250? I would say so. So I'd say the over on that one for hits on the season will go Colt Keith's way. Folks, tomorrow we're going to recap tonight's game, see what we have for the weekend against the Devils, and see how basically things are panning out in the other parts of the Eastern Conference. Whose wins tonight, whose losses tonight affect us any? Do we have a win tonight? Do we have a loss tonight? Are we completely out of it? Who knows? But it's looking abysmal for us, and it's too bad. It's been a solid season for at least 50 or so games of it. Not so much, or 51 games of it. Not so much for the other 27 so far. So you look at it, basically we've won a third of our games over this stretch. It's not going to happen. It's not going to make it work. You can't basically be at a 333 winning percentage, more or less, with this much of a chunk of the season and expect to make the playoffs. So that's where we leave it at. So many of coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Let's see moving forward tonight if we get the 2 points, if Ottawa doesn't get the 2 points, or if we're going to be singing the absolute death march in tomorrow's show. For then and for now, this is Kirk MckNight. This is Red Wings Daily, again presented to you by FanArch. LGRW from the PNW.